Okay, welcome everybody. This is Dr. Eric Woodroof. It's great to be here with you. There are many people from all over the country, and in fact some from all over the world on this, and this is fantastic to have your presence. I really appreciate it. It makes me very excited. Hopefully you all can hear me really well. We're going to be talking today about this new certification and course called the Performance, we'll just call it PCF. We'll just keep it short and simple. And you can look online to see what that means. But essentially it's about performance contracting and project funding. And I'm going to go through this really quickly. We'll probably just be together about 20 to 30 minutes, but it'll give you a good overview of what this class is about and why we're doing it. So with that, we're going to jump right into it. Some of you probably know who I am or have spent time with me, and many of you may have been exposed to some of this material before, so I apologize. But for those that don't know, I'm Dr. Eric Woodroof. I have been in this game for about 20 years, energy efficiency, and I wrote my dissertation on financing energy efficiency projects because at the time that was a very, very big problem, is getting projects implemented. But as you can see, I've got some clients, I've written some books on this topic, and I've been a past president of AEE and have really enjoyed that very much. I've written for Buildings Magazine and several other places. So if you're looking for some basic information, since my dissertation, after that, you can go on Buildings and Google, and you'll find some very good articles from me and other people as well that have talked about the explosion of different types of financing that's available for energy projects. And really that's one of the reasons we're doing this. And so we'll get into that. And the agenda for today is basically just to talk about the problem really quickly, like in a couple slides. Then we're going to get on to the solution and the need for recognized experts in this expanding field. And then we'll talk about course and content. Most of this 20 minutes we'll be talking about that. So that's what we're going to try to do. At the end, I'll conclude the recording and I'll try to do some questions. We'll see how that goes. I make no commitment there because I'm calling you today from Salt Lake City and it's all Wi-Fi and I'm on the road. And so my ability to see questions on a screen is extremely limited. So I'll do my best, but we'll see what happens there. So getting on to this, the problem. Well, really good news. Congratulations. Energy efficiency are good investments. Most of you, probably all of you, already know that. That this is a great solution. It's a great investment. And even if you think about the kinds of investments that are available in the marketplace, the ability, even in solar at a 15-year payback, say 7% return, to get a 7% predictable return, just even that number is fairly attractive compared to other investment options that you might have as a person. For companies, trying to get 25, 30, 40% returns are more common. And I know all of you know that we can get those returns on some types of energy projects. Energy projects, really is fixing energy waste, which is basically analogous to stopping bleeding in an emergency room. This is something that makes, really good sense. And in fact, I would challenge you, and I've taught all over the world, and thousands of people have had the chance to interact with people, and I would say that most of the time, the projects that our clients or our classmates or students or just professionals in the field, most of the time, the projects that we can develop in energy management are actually greater than our customers' normal profit margins. For example, if you're working for a large company, you may have a profit margin of 10 or 15%, and if you can get 25% out of an energy project, I would call that fantastic, and that's greater than operating the company. So that's where we come with this perspective that these are good investments, and that's very, very important. Unfortunately, we face this large barrier, and it really is the largest barrier. When I was doing my dissertation a long, long time ago, you could have a 3-year payback project, and it would get killed because they didn't have upfront capital. It was killing about 35% of the eligible good projects out there, and today that number is closer to 50%, which is sad. It's just terrible. But we have a solution. It's just like the mortgage on your house. We can finance things, and remember that energy projects represent, when we do energy savings, that also equals waste. And so if we're not saving it, we're technically wasting it. And our competition, if they're not wasting energy, they're more cost competitive than us. So when you look at this, as far as getting energy projects done, often the cost of delay, delaying is wasting more money and wasting more money. Often that cost is going to be greater than the cost of finance. And we'll talk on that a little bit later, but to get that concept out there that the cost of delay, waiting to decide if we're going to do a project or waiting if we're going to finance it or not, is usually much greater than the cost of finance. The other great thing about financing is that the simple payback is immediate. You know, it completely resolves the simple payback hurdle that so many of you faced. And just to keep this interactive, I would ask you if you have simple payback is a criteria, or if upfront capital is a criteria, type double Y. I'm curious to see how many people would respond to that. We've got over 100 people on this call, and from all over, as I said, even other countries. Type double Y if you face a barrier called upfront capital. I'm just curious. But anyway, you know, these are some of the solutions that are out there. But even with that solution, you know, the financing solution, we still have this barrier, upfront costs. And I think, as we're seeing, most people agree with me there. And so, you know, that really is insane. We can't continue to just do nothing. I mean, doing nothing accomplishes no energy savings, no pollution savings, no money savings. And in fact, it puts us at a least competitive position because we're not moving forward. So we just cannot lead. I'm you know, somewhat frustrated with this, and I would say I don't know, halfway through my career in my life. So I'm, you know, the rest of it, I just want to get more projects done. That's really what I want to do, and I want to see happen. And so we created this course really to accomplish a few things. One of the things is to help and educate as best we can, help professionals understand and actually apply solutions like performance contracting, and then all the other new financing variables that can be part of a PC or independent, things like PACE financing, property assessed clean energy, OBF, on-bill financing, leases, ESAs, MESAs, there's PPAs, there's a whole bunch of great options out there, and there's not a lot of common understanding. You know, the PACE people have great tools for PACE. OBF has great tools, but we're trying to put all that together in a perspective that's somewhat neutral and provide a good understanding of the whole marketplace, much like we do with the CEM program. If you're a CEM, type CEM in the question mark. I'd love to see how many CEMs we have. But I would argue that the CEM program is a broad look at a lot of different things, motors, lighting, financing, etc. You know, and gives you a kind of a mile wide look at an inch deep of material. But it's useful because you can see the landscape. So we want to educate people about this new opportunity and all the different changes that a lot of them happened since I've written my dissertation. We also, you know, ultimately want to solve this upfront capital barrier. That's what we want to do. Personally, that's what I'm passionate about, is getting more projects done by removing that barrier. And we should be able to remove the barrier. You know, people buy houses with mortgages. They do this. It doesn't keep them from buying houses. We can accomplish the same kind of thing with energy. And the third goal, and this is probably why a lot of you may be here, is to provide some distinction and some credibility for people who work in this field. As of today, I mean, as of before this class, we could certify buildings and LEED. We could certify, you know, ESCOs, and NASCO would certify ESCOs as being credible ESCOs to work with. But down to the personal level, there was not a certification that talked about or really established a level of competency for professionals working in this field that would have a test at the end of it to say, hey, this person has passed a test. He knows at least you know, some level of competency about these different options. And really, much like the CEM, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So who is this for? Basically, this is for, you know, energy consultants, project developers, those types of people. Anyone really who needs capital to get approved should know about these different options. And, you know, this can work not only on the ESCO side, but on the facility manager side, the people, the municipalities, federal government, school employees who are trying to navigate and understand their different options. And they may be getting sales pitches from different types of providers. And this would help them kind of understand the landscape there. Of course, ESCO salespeople and just developing process, and also accelerating project development. I believe that if ESCO salespeople and the customer, the people on the other side of that contract, attend a conference like this or attend any training on this topic, and they both understand the topic better and they're both educated, the whole project process goes much faster. It can accelerate projects and actually get more things done. Utility representatives, obviously, you know, and some of you may not know what a utility energy service contract is, and some of the other variants there, but we'll go through that, you know, in the course. And then, of course, energy finance people who are involved in ESAs, MESAs, and all these other variables. That's really who the course is for overall. Now, let's go through the schedule here. Again, we're going very, very quick, but hopefully you'll get a good idea of what this two-day course is about. Basically, we'll do a quick introduction on the need and some of the global challenges we face there. Then we'll get right into the different types of arrangements. We'll talk about loans, bonds, leases, tax-exempt leases, tax-exempt options, pass-throughs, all these different choices, PACE financing, on-bill, etc. We'll talk about economics impacts, and we'll also take the life cycle cost analysis that many of you learned in CEM or the carbon class, and we'll take that a step farther to do a lot of analysis on financing and how that impacts the NPVs, et cetera. So this will be, I think, very, very useful to your career beyond energy management, et cetera. Then in the afternoon on the first day, we hit the, I'm sorry, not even the afternoon, in the morning. It's a busy course. In the morning, we do performance contracts. We talk about the laws. We talk about the overall concepts, some of the risks, pitfalls, best practices. We talk about some of the international financing protocols that are out there and other guideline documents that might be helpful to you. Then we do lunch, which everyone knows what lunch goes like. And then in the afternoon, we do performance contracts. We're going to jump into heavy-duty performance contracting, the process, how to basically qualify ESCOs, how ESCOs can qualify clients. We'll talk about project development strategies. We'll show you contract templates. You can have some of those as part of the appendix material. We'll talk about some of the details like termination clauses, reconciliation, all the other details that may kill or delay a project, and try to minimize those. In the afternoon, or I keep saying afternoon, but at the end of the first day, we basically go through the different types of contract vehicles. You've got ESPC, Super ESPC, Shared Savings, Guaranteed Savings, Power Purchase Agreements, all of these other ones, utility, energy, service contracts, etc. We go through those, the different contract templates. On the second day in the morning, we spend a pretty good amount of time, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, on M&V and how to optimize that, because that is such an important part of performance contracts, as well as other savings-based arrangements. The financing could be dependent on that. There can be investment-grade audits. There can be, basically financial checks and balances, and we need to make sure we can optimize that. So we'll give you best practices there and pitfalls. And then finally, I like to include this in any course because I think it's such an underutilized tool, especially with engineers, and I'm a PhD in engineer and a physics degree, so I'm worse. But selling the project, very, very important step, and often not done well. But if we don't do this part well, there is no savings. So we have to do this well. And we're going to show you some of the tools that are out there and best practices, and I'll show you some advanced presentation techniques. We'll do a lot of discussion in this class. Then you have a lunch period and then a 2-hour exam. The exam is not as long as the CEM exam in questions or in time. It's just a 2-hour exam, very doable, but very comprehensive. I've wrote this test, and I'm telling you, I think it's very challenging, so we'll see how that goes. But overall, the course design is this. We're going to overview some major options. I would call it, in a way, like speed dating of project funding options and give you a broad view of that landscape. We will go into significant detail on those as well. We'll have a lot of interaction and discussion, and then I'll give you some extra resources in the appendix. We'll give you a lot of screenshots. I'm going to now give you some screenshots from the course just to show you the kinds of things we're going to be talking about. So different types of project funding options, leases, capital leases, all the different aspects of those, where it makes sense, what are the benefits, etc. We'll go into cash flow diagrams and actually show you charts of the different options and how they impact and what are the variables and the literally sensitivities to these different ones. So we'll do this: bonds, leases. Some of you may have seen some of these slides before. We'll talk about tax exempt versus commercial leasing and the growth of that market. We'll talk about PACE, property, which is a tremendous sweeping the country type thing, legislation, and I think in, well, more than 25, 29 states, I can't remember. Anyway, 31 states, it says it right there, 31 states. And you can learn about some of the resources. This is more for commercial financing of buildings. This is a really innovative thing that ties your installation costs to the property tax bill, and that can be transferred if you sell the building. So it basically eliminates the upfront cost barrier and enables you something that you can transfer on. The new owner of a building would get the benefits and the costs. If the benefits are greater than the costs, awesome, everybody's happy. So it's just a fantastic way of moving forward. But that's for commercial, and we'll go through some of the structure. We'll give you different structures of what these things look like and all these different types of opportunities. We'll talk about on-bill financing, what utilities are doing all over the country to have different options, and you can have OBR or OBF, and we'll talk about the differences there in much more detail, and talk about case studies. We'll do a lot of that in this class. We'll give you some decision trees, and these come from some vendors. This is from Metris, but this is just one example. I did one like this in my dissertation, but this is much prettier, so I'm borrowing from them. And you can have these kind of decision trees to help you make decisions, or give you a guideline anyway. We'll also talk about other financing solutions, trying to get around the tenant landlord barrier, like such developments that have been going on in green leasing, and we have green lease case studies, and we'll talk about some of those things, resolving the split incentive barrier. We'll talk extensively about performance contracting, as a lot of you are probably performance contracting professionals and are very interested in that. We'll talk about the growth of the market. We'll talk about how to qualify ESCOs, and the same how ESCOs can do a better job of qualifying customers. Because if you've worked in the ESCO industry or performance contracting industry, you do not want to waste time, as it's expensive. So, we'll talk about that. If you're working in the federal government, you got to deal with the federal regulations, and we'll talk about that. We'll show you where the regulations are. We'll go through the entire performance contracting process. As some people would say, it's basic PC training. We'll talk about the basic steps of the process. We know where there's a, partnership, and where there's a financial commitment, where there's payment, where there's project development, where there's M&V, so that people can understand. I think this will be very educational. Maybe to early performance contracting salespeople could find this very valuable, or people who are new to the industry in general. As you know, if you're in the federal government, you have a very specific defined process for super ESPC and federal government PC that talks about things like task orders and other definitions that may be foreign to you now, but if you take this course, and that's the kind of material and vocabulary you'll be gaining. We'll talk about the websites that are available, and talk about Enable Process or UESCs or other types of things that are available, resources, and other training that's literally available to help you in these little niche markets. And really, our course isn't going to do the niche market thing, but we're going to give you the broad view and the certification that you understand, just like the CEM, the bigger picture. That's really what we're going after. Now, case studies, we've got case studies on PC all over the place. We direct you to some of the best. We'll analyze some of those. We'll analyze contracts and tell you what was a good idea, what was a bad idea from both sides. We'll show you other templates and guidelines that are out there. BOMA's got some material there on performance contracting. They have contract documents. We'll point you to where those are and show you how to do that kind of stuff. And I'll show you my own PDAs and others that I've developed with ESCOs. Project development agreements. We will give you the templates and the contracts, and you can literally use those. Why reinvent the wheel? So we'll give you a lot of material. I'll share with you some performance contracts. Some of these are, $100 million type performance contracts, huge performance contracts. Or I should say $100 million in spend, and could be $10 million in savings. And I'll share with you some of these. We've whitewashed them to protect the customers, but we'll show you some of the good and bad of some of those. We'll talk about, as I mentioned, we'll talk about M&V, and we'll talk about how, when you sell a project, how the M&V is done, whether it can be stipulated savings and things to look out for, and things to be aware of, like escalation rates and other aspects that can influence the contract and the profits, as well as what you're paying on a customer side. We'll talk about UESCs and what that is, and what's required with M&V and some of the things there. You'll find it to be a streamlined version of PC. I already mentioned that we will talk about IPMVP, which is the M&V piece, International Performance. I'm never going to do the acronym right, but look it up and you'll be able to spell that. And we'll talk about the different options there and where it might be cost effective to do different options in different types of scenarios. Basically, trying to save you time is really a lot what we're doing here. I'm going back to the advanced economic analysis piece. I did mention that before, in the CEM type material, you might be presented with cash flow diagrams that look like this. And we're going to do that to a greater level, incorporate financing, where you might have different financing options and picking the best NPV, which will be applicable in all types of energy projects. Because literally, another reason for this course, all projects involve money. So no matter how you slice it, you're going to have to deal with money at some point. So we're going to make you better at dealing with money in this course. And because you're going to be tested, you're going to care. So anyway, that's some things there. I'll tell you that there are some great tools to help you. EPA's got some tools here, and the Energy Star has some tools. This is a cash flow tab or a screenshot of some of their programs, and you can see the way they present it. It's pretty nice, and you can plug and chug and do sensitivity analysis all day with real pretty graphics. And literally they will tell you, hey, if you do this now, this generates this much more cash than waiting. You might find that useful as a sales tool. Building on sales tools, and then the last part of the course, we do that sales material where there are literally documents written by some very well-respected people in the industry about how to deal with this stuff, how to get around challenges like it costs too much or debt ceilings or credit worthiness, and literally walk you through step by step for different types of projects. So very useful, useful information, very applicable, and very targeted. So all in all, I said this wasn't going to be a long webinar, and I've got a little more to do with you, but all in all, this is a quick summary of this course. We're going to do an introduction. We're going to overview all the financial arrangements and applications that are pretty popular out there right now. Many of them are new and exciting and Actually, there's a lot of hybrids out there like trusts and things that have incredible tax advantages and tax deductions and other things that are pretty exciting. We'll go through all of that. Now, those could be combined with performance contracts or not, but knowing the options you have definitely increases your ability to do performance contracts, or you can do the arrangements by yourself. So you'll have both views of that, of those independent variables that are very, much a part of the solution that we're trying to create as far as mitigating that upfront capital barrier. Then we'll talk about how to qualify, basically the house, how to qualify, the client, how to qualify the ESCO, project development agreements, contract types, different vehicles basically, and then you have the M&V and some of the best practices there. There is an exam, and I know some of you are very keen to this information. This will tell you how many questions are going to be on the different aspects of the exam. So a little bit of history, a little bit on performance contracting, a little bit on the arrangements, contracts and terms, pretty evenly spaced. I mean, there's some areas we're emphasizing more than others, obviously, but only 5 questions on the advanced econ. But I think you'll find it to be a challenging course, even though there's not as many questions as the CEM. If you want to get a flavor of what the questions are like, there are some sample PCF test questions on the AEE website. If you Google AEE space PCF, you'll be able to find this document. It was, I believe, published in Buildings as well, but a short version you can download from AEE. And literally it has all the questions and the answers and the thought processes behind those answers are at the end of that little document. So you can use that to get kind of a flavor of what might be on the test. But back to the overall goal here. Overall goal here of this certification and course is to establish credibility among professionals working in this industry. And I think when you earn that certification, much like when many of you have earned a CEM, it opens doors for you, it sets a level of expectation, and literally is raising the bar in the industry. And this industry is expanding a lot, so I really do think it's needed. Ultimately, I hope it mitigates the upfront capital barrier, and I want it to get more projects implemented. I think that benefits everyone on this call, and that's really what we're trying to accomplish. For more information, you can obviously go to the AEE website. It looks like this, and you can learn about the program. There's a course coming up in less than 2 weeks in Seattle, and the only other one that's going to be offered in the United States this year is going to be at the World Energy Congress. And you can find out about those. And at the end of this, I think, I'd say thank you now for listening, but at the next slide I'm going to say there is a discount code for those who for this year are getting into this course, and it's PCF 200 is the code. So if you type that in or tell them, I don't know, however you want to apply that, they'll give you, I think, $200 off of this course, and that's only for 2014. So there's 2 courses in the U.S. Just keep in mind on that. But with that, I want to say thank you very much. I hope you guys have found this useful, kind of an overview of the class and what we're trying to accomplish. I hope you get that, the passion that I have around this, because I really do think this is a major problem we need to solve in energy management. Or maybe we won't ever be able to solve it, but maybe we can do a heck of a lot better job at getting more projects done, because there is just tremendous amount of need there. And, energy costs are projected to be going up with the new carbon legislation. You can expect that to be true. I know it's true. Where I live, energy costs are expected to go up like 40% in the next few years. So all of those things put strains on our economy that are already there. All of those things make it maybe even more difficult to come up with the upfront capital. But on the back side of that, the savings is there. And if we can finance and do these things and do a better job, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a few questions I'll try to answer on that people are asking me, and we've got a few minutes, so I'll keep the recording going for a few more minutes. And let's see, is there a comprehensive test? Yes, there's a comprehensive test. It's going to cover PACE, it's going to cover PC, it's going to cover PPAs, it's going to cover advanced financing, and I think we've covered that there. So thank you for that question. Are there resources available for pre-study? Jacob asked that question, and yes, there are on the website, as I mentioned. So maybe you guys have asked these earlier. I'm going to look back at the last few questions. Will the course be coming overseas? Most likely, yes. And if you put in a request to AEE, tell them where you are and where you want the course, they probably can arrange that. Is AEE going to have a live webinar version of this class? I don't know yet. I think we're going to do the live one in Seattle and see how that goes. Is this presentation available? From Gabe Munoz. This presentation will be recorded and put on the AEE PCF website, I believe, if it goes well and if it records well and if all the technology works out, being that I'm on a Wi-Fi. Hopefully that'll work out great. Other questions? Let's see. Any Excel files associated with the course going to be given to students during the test? I tell you what, I don't know about Excel files, but I can tell you there are resources that we will give out in the appendices that will be very helpful to you as the course evolves. I imagine we will, as in any course I've developed or with a committee of people, and the committee is excellent, by the way, any course is going to evolve. I remember the carbon course, we've evolved that course and added more tools to it, et cetera, and that's true. That takes time, but I'm telling you there's a lot of tools already in the first pack. And as the course evolves, we will, take things out, put things in as the market adjusts, just like we do with the CEM. That can assure you of that. That'll be an ongoing process. I think those are the major questions here. There's someone asked about revolving loan. We will talk about those, and I'll show you where to find more information about those state by state. Is there a time requirement for those doing PCF work in order to do the testing? So, great question from Myron. So if you go on the AEE PCF website, it lists all the prerequisites, very similar to the way that the CEM is. You need so many years experience, et cetera. But because this is a new era, and we know this is a new area, they're not going to make you have 3 years of financing energy projects experience. That's not going to be an initial criteria. I think it's 3 years in energy management, but you can look online and find that out. So these are great questions. I really encourage you to reach out and look into the course, and if it's working, if it makes sense for you, I'd love to have you in the class. I hope the certification can be valuable to you. I'm really confident that it will. I'm very excited about this, and I really hope ultimately we can get more projects implemented, because at the end of the day, nothing else matters. So with that, I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for attending, and you guys have a great day, and this is the end of the webinar. Take care.